Welcome to Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to take control of your life, learning valuable strategies for healing and looking at mental health through a trauma-informed lens. Get ready to feel empowered and confident in managing your symptoms. And now, here is your host, licensed clinical social worker, EMDR therapist, and certified clinical trauma professional, Jamie Vollmuller.
Welcome to Good Enough. I am your host, Jamie Vollmuller, and I am so excited to get back into my jam, intergenerational trauma, helping those burnt out mamas learn to love themselves and to create the family life that they've always dreamed of and wanted, and to stop repeating the things that make them beat themselves up as moms, like yelling at their kids or not being present or feeling like they don't want to be around their children when they're actually around them, because that's a real thing that most of us don't talk about because it makes us feel bad. And it makes us feel like we're bad parents or that there must be something inherently wrong with us that we feel this way. But when we're running through chronic stress, guys, when we are pouring from an empty cup and running around all the time, that's kind of inevitable to happen because we are not in our best minds. And we are not being our best selves. And I think that's a commonality for a lot of the women that we work with, where they feel like they don't feel like their best selves at home. They don't feel comfortable in their own home or heard or validated or loved or appreciated. And that's a problem because for most of us women, family is one of the most important things to us. And they are one of the things that we judge ourselves on to see how happy we actually are, right? And how successful we are, right? Especially as women, our role as mothers is a role that we are very much judged upon. So in learning to love ourselves and find that balance and break the chaos cycle that we all get stuck in, we can become the kind of moms that we want to be and break the patterns that we don't want to repeat. And learn to show ourselves compassion when we do repeat those patterns, and learn to repair with our kids when we mess up, because repair is the most important thing. Really, really excited to announce to you guys that we will be doing workshops and groups, and we are creating an online community for women to discuss these issues openly about how we feel around our kids, or mom rage, or feeling so unappreciated or overwhelmed or resentful. Even there are so many of us that feel so resentful for all the things that we have to do, and feeling like no one does anything for us in return. And that is valid. But I want to teach you guys how to start advocating for what you need and start putting out in the world what you actually need and learning what you need. Because as I found when I was doing my own work, I didn't even know what brought me happiness anymore besides work. Like at home, it was just what needed to be done, the obligations. And that's kind of how it went for a while. But that was really overwhelming because I didn't address any of my own needs at home. And that made me a really burnt out, stressed out mom. So when I learned to start accounting for what I needed in my daily routine at home, and even incorporating that with the kids, like a need for me is movement. So when school restarted, I was like, this year we're getting on a routine, guys. We are getting off the bus, putting our backpacks in and going for a walk every day. And my kids fought me hardcore. Didn't want to go for a walk. Now they love it. Now they look forward to it. And it's our time to just sit and connect. And I don't have my phone out. My husband doesn't have his phone out. We just talk to the boys about what their day was, and talk about how the weather is and nature and different things that we see. Like right now it's Halloween season and we look at all the different houses and just have, normal conversation. But I want you to ask yourself how often you gave your kids your full undivided attention, not talking to them while you're cooking or doing some other task or cleaning or looking at your phone or making an appointment, or, like fully undivided attention. For their kids, especially young kids, their problems can seem really, really, really small and really, really unimportant, but to them, they're huge, right? And when we don't listen to our kids when they're little and these problems to them that seem huge, we dismiss like they're unimportant. That just teaches our kids that we're not going to be there to help them solve their problems, right? That's literally what it teaches, guys. It's a hard reality. It's not fair. We're burnt, we're exhausted, we're just trying to get through. It's not what we intend to do, but that's what we're teaching. And it's important for us to recognize that. So just giving your kids that undivided attention every day for even 10 minutes is a world of difference. So in this episode, we're going to go into how we can be better moms and take better care of ourselves so that we feel better and our relationships are better. And we feel that we're valued and worthy and loved and all of the things that we struggle with that core belief of feeling not good enough and the tendencies to seek external validation and make others happy so that we can feel good enough. And so many of us get into this cycle for so long that we're taking care of everyone else's needs to the point that we forget that we have needs. And then we get resentful that other people aren't meeting our needs, but we're not verbalizing our needs. We're not identifying our needs. We're not talking about our needs at all, unless we're really burnt and finally at our breaking point, and then we blow up on our partner about all of the needs that we have that have been unmet that they were unaware of, because we also expect them to mind read, which is another thing that we do as women. And that's because we, as people pleasers, are very in tune to other people and we can expect what their needs are. But we expect everyone else to do that for us. And 9 times out of 10, our partners aren't built that way. So they don't expect our needs. And then we think that must mean that those people don't care about us. That's not true. They just don't know what your needs are. And it's actually kind of unhealthy for us to expect people to just magically know what our needs are. We got to communicate what our needs are. We got to communicate what we want, what we need, how they can help us. And I mean specific, actionable things like I need to go to the gym. I will tell my husband specifically on Wednesday and Friday, I am going to Brickhouse to do Zumba at 6:00. So I'm going to need you to take care of the kids between 5:30 and 7:30, right? Those 2 nights a week. And my husband will say to me, hey, I'm in jujitsu. I need to go to practice on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings at 8:00. So I'm going to need you to get up with the kids on those mornings. And we set our own routines so that we can make sure that we're both meeting each other's needs. And me and my husband are not people that grew up in a household where we learned how to communicate our needs. It's something we learned how to do in our own relationship. And it really works. And we have an amazing relationship because we both tell each other what we need. And we tell the other person how you can help me meet my needs, how you can help me meet my needs. Even yesterday, I said to my husband, I'm really avoiding something that is causing me a lot of anxiety, triggering my own imposter syndrome. Yes, guys, I still have imposter syndrome. We just learned how to deal with it better. But I said it's triggering my imposter syndrome. I'm feeling really anxious and avoidant. And I recognize myself going into this pattern and avoiding this task that is the task that I need to do to move forward with this project. And I said, I need you to make sure when I get home tomorrow, I sit down and do this task. And as soon as I got home, my husband said, all right, here's your lunch, go upstairs, get your task done. Right? And just that prompt, that level of accountability can help me go through. And I did complete the task and it's done and I feel better. But part of why it's so important for us to explain our needs to others so that we can feel supported is sometimes the people that we have in our lives don't know how to support us. They don't know how to support us. They don't know what support we need. And when I was first doing this work with my husband, it turned out that neither of us really knew what we needed. So it's really hard for us to tell the other person how to help because my husband's a lot like me and he's a doer, and he doesn't account for his own needs. So we both had to sit there and really think about what is draining me right now and what would bring me joy and what would help me regulate better and what do I need to be the kind of person that I want to be in my family, right? Because when you take care of everyone else, it's really easy to lose sight of yourself and what your own needs are. So for those of you who I'm saying this and you're like, I don't know what my needs are, start writing them down. And if you can't remember like just write down what used to make you happy, even if you haven't done it in a while, right? Like going on walks is something that makes me very happy. It's very healing to my nervous system, which is why I incorporated walks every day with the kids, because I knew that one, it's great for them. They have definitely probably ADHD, and getting that energy out and allowing them to have movement after they've been sitting all day. It's really helpful for my son. Grabs his snack, we go for his walk. He gets his energy out. He gets all his anxieties out and can talk about everything that happened during the day. And I can address all of his concerns. And then he's in a good mindset to sit and do his homework, which is usually a battle. Or last year it was. This year it's not, because he's focused. He's focused because I gave him what he needed to regulate his own nervous system so he can sit and do this challenging task. And that is the kind of stuff, guys. There's no draw a line and this is the one solution, right? What I'm talking about here is changing the way that we operate in our lives. It is a lifestyle change. It is learning to prioritize our own needs It is pretty radical, honestly, in changing the way that we think about ourselves. We think about what our purpose is, what brings us value, what we allow in our lives, what boundaries we have, what boundaries we hold, because so many of us try to set boundaries and then backpedal as soon as we feel the slightest bit that that person might be mad at us. And a lot of us do this with our kids, which creates really inconsistent like messaging. And it's part of the reason why maybe it's harder for you to get your kids to listen. Our messaging is important. So in this episode today, we're going to dive into that and how this community is going to support all of the moms of the world who want to break those patterns, who want to start loving themselves for who they are, who want to start feeling empowered instead of burnt and feel like they're thriving instead of just surviving each day, right? And that they're living their best life because we can. And for so many of us, we really cherish the family. We really cherish the time that we have with our kids, right? So how can we learn to be more focused and productive in that time so that we're facilitating attachment and that those interactions that we're having are more meaningful and lasting and impactful. And we're creating good attachment with our kids so that when they are teenagers, when they are adults, they're still coming to us rather than peers or outside sources to solve their problems. Really excited. Let's jump in. So excited to get back on to intergenerational trauma. I'm really excited to announce we're going to be launching a course in January called Don't Know How She Does It Group, where we're going to work with those busy, burnt out mamas who get everything done under the sun and still feel chronically empty. It's something that I definitely have struggled with in my life, and a lot of the girls on my team have struggled with as well. It's a very common problem of our ideal client, and I really feel like that's because of how we are conditioned in society to function as women, as well as just some of the familial stuff that was passed down to us. I'm also going to note that, we are located on Long Island. It's a very big Italian-Irish population here on the island. And at least in the Italian culture, I can tell you, women are supposed to do everything. We are supposed to be, traditionally, most of us, the traditional Italian family is like a brownstone with multiple family generations. We are very family. Most of our families are very crazy. And you love them anyway because family is family. And that is what we're taught. A lot of us were also raised by moms that were stay-at-home moms that made all the food and did all the cooking and all of that. And if you weren't a stay-at-home mom, I know my Italian grandmother still did all the cleaning, all the cooking. Like they still fulfilled all the womanly duties. My mother still fulfilled all the womanly duties too, and she worked. But it was, especially in our culture, it is the woman's role to raise the children. It is the woman's role to keep a clean house. It is the woman's role to cook. And now it's also her role to do a whole career outside of the home. And I think it's that messaging, which came from the old country, right? And they were able to do that there. That's stuck now. And I know even from my well-intending family members, I'll get like, oh, well, make sure you don't miss out on the kids and family is important and blah, blah, blah. But there's all this messaging just makes us feel like we're not equating to enough at home. We're not doing enough at home. And then we also feel like we're not doing enough at work sometimes. Or for some of us, we feel like work is our only safe place where we feel validated. And at home is, where we really feel unappreciated and burnt out. But for any woman struggling with that, we want to help you to learn that balance. We want to help you to learn how to start prioritizing you, learn how to delegate, basically learn how to become the CEO in your own house. We want to teach you how to delegate things out, how to be assertive in your communication, not aggressive, assertive in your communication, how to actually verbalize your needs so that your partner and your kids can help you. Because I guarantee the people in your life want to help you. Most cases, it's that the women that we work with don't ever really verbalize what they need. Some of them don't even know what they need. You know why? Because they're so focused on everyone else's needs. They don't even stop to think about what they need. And then we wonder why we're so burnt. So I'm really excited to get back into that and to talk to you guys about the importance of the pause and checking in with ourselves and taking the time to slow it down. Because so many of us are running from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, right? We're just running all over the place. This task, this task, this task, this task, this task. And then we get home and we're drained and we just want to pass out. And then some of us stay up all night thinking about all the other many tasks that are on our list that we didn't get to finish. And despite doing all those things, we still feel like we're not really accomplished because we're drained And there's still a million more things to do. And that's because so many of us take on way more than we can really handle in the name of being a good mom, a good partner, a good daughter, a good friend. And what we want to really help you guys do is learn how to prioritize you, learn how to know what you want, figure out what you need. Let's just start there. Let's figure out what we need so we can communicate it to other people. Let's work on why we have that guilt. Because it's not so much, all the women I work with, they know that this isn't healthy, right? But it's that physical sensation of guilt. For me, if I go to say no traditionally, before doing a lot of inner work on this, I would feel physically anxious saying no because of all of the anticipated responses or the previous responses in my life that I'm now anticipating is really what I mean. So if I go to say no, my brain is thinking about all the other times I said no and how that blew into a blow up, or I was called selfish, or blah, blah, blah. And it just feels in my body like this isn't worth the battle. But what happens is that everything feels like it's not worth the battle. And therefore we pick no battles, or we don't pick a battle until we are ready to literally murder everyone around us. So we push it down, we push it down, we push it down, we push it down. We blow up like a psychopath. And then everyone goes, I don't know why she's acting so crazy. That was a disproportionate response. All I asked her to do was, pick up the cake for the birthday party on her way over, right? But that might have been the 20th thing that you asked her to do that week. And she already had 50 other things that she was going to do that day and said yes to. You don't know what's going on in other people's minds. They certainly don't know what's going on in ours. But most of us really struggle with saying no until we're at our breaking point. And there's problems in that because number one, if we're talking about breaking intergenerational trauma, if you are running around like a chicken with your head cut off, girl, let me tell you, you're not being mindful. Sorry, hard reality. Had to face it myself. We're not being mindful. There's no way to be present with your kids if you're on high alert mode and like constantly on the go, constantly stressed out and constantly burnt out, because you can't be mentally present if you're under chronic stress, because those two aren't synonymous. So the only way for you to be the mentally present mother, spouse, partner, daughter, friend that you want to be is to get out of that chronic stress mode. Because when we're in chronic stress mode, right, we're not using our logical brain. We're going off all those past patterns that tell us that, oh, this is just easier. This is just easier. This is just easier. Even though we feel burnt, even though we're unhappy with this pattern that we've been stuck in. And what happens is because we're burnt and unhappy, we're irritable. We are not really paying attention to what our kids are trying to communicate with us. Like we're trying to multitask, right? Because we feel so overburdened and flustered. And that's understandable. But when we break that pattern, then you can actually get into, and part of that, honestly, for me, was scheduling time in with my kids, was scheduling time to be present. That sounds ridiculous. Because I do see it's not like I have to schedule time to be home. I'm home all the time. It's just, I realized that when I was home, if I was doing all these tasks at home, if I was cleaning and cooking and getting like just all of the, I don't even know what tasks they are. It feels like a million tasks though. But if I'm with them, but not fully with them, I'm not really I'm physically there, but not mentally present. And what our kids need are parents who are mentally present. Because when we're mentally present, we can be in tune with our kids' needs. And if you're running on chronic stress mode, you're not going to pick up on the warning signs that your kid's starting to go downhill until they're downhill. But if you can be mentally present with them, you're going to pick up on, hey, you seem a little off today. What happened at school? And you'll hear those little things. But if we're in our own world because we're chronically stressed out, we are not going to be as present as we want to be as parents. And that also leads, and we're going to be more irritable, which is going to lead to more fights and more arguments. And so one good tip is to find 10 minutes out of the day. And I want you to put your phone down, no laptop, no phone, no nothing. Don't think about anything else. Just sit there with your kid, play with your kid. Talk to them about their day. They don't want to talk about their day yet, which so many parents will say to me. It's because you guys got to work on rebuilding that trust in that relationship. And I know this might offend some people, but as the parent, it is our responsibility to repair the relationship. No matter what our kids do, they're children. They're children. And what we have to remember is our response to them also has an impact on how they respond. And our response overall is usually what they're modeling. If your kid's yelling and screaming and being disrespectful, it's usually because that's something they learned. And unfortunately, it's usually from us. And I say this with no judgment, guys. Like, one of the things I noticed the other day. So I have a terrible, my pet peeves with my kids always seem to be things that I do, right? Which is a hard thing to learn as a parent, but telling you guys so you can start noticing it too. So one of the things my kids do is they will leave their laundry, which we're working on, they're getting better, right on the floor. Drives me nuts, especially because I have my two boys, my two nephews. They'll just like get ready for their pajamas downstairs and they'll just be like clothes all over, all over. And I was like, this is so frustrating. I keep telling them to put it in the bin. Why don't they put it in the bin? And then I went to my room and I'm like, Jamie, you never put your clothes in the bin. My husband does too. We're those people that just, at least it's in our room though, right? It's not all over my house. But what I had to start doing was I have to model that. If I'm telling them to do something and I'm not doing it, they're not really going to listen because I'm not even modeling that it's important, right? So once I started being like, okay, we're going to put it in the bin. And in the beginning, I would help them like, okay, you grab this, I'll grab this. Let's all clean up and put it in the bin. And that was helpful. There was another thing that I noticed that I did that also is a pet peeve of mine when they scream from the other room, especially because I'm the type of person that if I'm watching something, I'm like zoning out. Or if I'm doing something, sometimes I like get in the zone, especially because my house is so loud with 4 boys, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and 2 3-year-olds, and then an infant on top of that. It gets loud. So I kind of have to just block it out and focus on what I'm doing. So sometimes when they're screaming mom from the other room, I'm not hearing it because they scream all the freaking time. That's just how my house is. It's loud, it's crazy, it's chaotic. I have kids with ADHD and sometimes they can't play outside. Anytime they can play outside, believe me, my sensory overwhelm is like, go play outside, guys. Let's be loud outside. But on days that it rains and stuff, unless, I'm sitting there and doing crafts with them and giving them something to do, every once in a while, they do need to run around and get that energy out because they need to move. But anywho, I realized that they scream from the other room because I scream from the other room. I constantly am like too lazy to get up and walk to the playroom to be like, hey, Michael, can you do this? So he takes the page from my book and he yells from the playroom to me, no matter where I am in the house, Mom, can you blah, 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 blah. And I can't hear him. So I had to start, right? And I've told him to stop doing that a million times. But what I'm saying to him and what I do didn't line up. So it was really frustrating for me that like, why isn't he listening? And then I realized like, crap, you do this all the time. So I started to walk over to my son now and I will get up. Sometimes it's hard because I am with a newborn and sometimes I'm breastfeeding. So I have to like actually like wait to get up and go see him face to face to ask for things sometimes, which is annoying, but it's worth it because now that I can go into that room and I say, hey, Mike, can you do XYZ? Or I need you to pause this so we can focus on this. And I give him a directive because I'm there, because I'm looking at him, because I'm engaged with him. And I now have his attention because again, my son is like me. He's watching TV. He's tuning everything out. So I'm getting frustrated yelling Michael from the other room 1,000 times. And by the time he hears me, I sound like a bitch because I've said it 5 times, but he didn't hear me the first 4 times. So now he's agitated because I sound bitchy and he just heard me the first time call him. And so he's going to come back with an attitude. And this is how it's these little things, guys. If we can pay attention to like, what triggers us? What triggers our kids? What are the tiny steps that we can take to make these interactions better? Because it's those little interactions. It's the, Mike with his socks in the morning. Again, my kid has sensory issues. So if he needs to, every season, it's a battle because the clothes feel different because some of them are warmer, they're longer. He doesn't like long sleeves. He doesn't like pants. He doesn't like sweatshirts. He doesn't like socks. It's a lot. But one of the things that was starting to happen is every morning it would be like a battle over clothes and he doesn't want to wear this and he doesn't want to wear that. And I was like, okay, we're no longer doing this. Every night now we pick out his clothes the night before and I sit with him and I go, okay, how do these pants feel? It's going to be this warm tomorrow. Do you want to wear these pants or these pants? Because the warmness of the pants will bother him if it's too warm outside. And we'll pick out his shirt and we lay it out the night before right next to his bed. And in the morning, there's no more debate because he picked it out the night before. He knows what he's going to wear. He already agreed to it and he just puts it on rather than a 30-minute debacle every morning over, I don't want these pants. And a lot of it is because in the morning, I know I'm dysregulated because I'm like, we're going to be late. He's going to miss the bus. My husband's going to be late to work, all of these things, right? And because I'm anxious, he picks up on my anxiety and now he's more anxious and he's more combative. So by removing that, right, by looking at like, okay, why isn't this working? Like, okay, let's do it the night before so that neither one of us are anxious and it's just there and there's this expectation and this is now our routine. And routine with kids is really important. There's just less battles. So I'm really excited to get back into mom mode because mom mode is my true life. Politics is important to me because the larger picture does affect us on a day-to-day basis, but it's not my specialty and it's not my jam. So I'm really excited to get back into mom mode with you guys and start talking about how we raise up children that don't have the baggage that we have, or at least less, because we're not going to be perfect. That's also true. I mean, we're just not, but hopefully we do better. And I will say, in my family, I as not great as some of the things in my childhood were, I will say my parents did better than their parents and my grandparents did better than their parents. So as long as we keep on that trajectory, I think we'll be okay. And as long as our kids know that they're loved and that we did our best. And doing our best means actually showing up. And what I will say is it's a million times easier to make that good relationship with your child now than try to repair it when they're an adult. Because if you were not there for your child when they were their most vulnerable, which they are as a child, as a young child, even as a teenager, then they're not going to trust that you're going to be there for them when they're a full grown adult and have already been taking care of themselves like an adult their whole life. And that's important for us to notice, guys. Like what are our values? What are our priorities? And I know for a lot of the moms that listen to this, it's our kids. And it's just finding that balance and learning how to navigate all of the responsibilities we have and be the kind of mom we want to be to them is hard. And I really want to help you guys on that journey because it's been a really beautiful healing journey for me. I think for a lot of the women in my practice, it's also been a really beautiful healing journey for them. And honestly, through working with you guys, we learn even more because there's always more to be learned. There just is. And anyone telling you that they have the exact solution for your exact problem is probably selling you nonsense because every kid is different. I will tell you, I have 3 different children. What they need from me as a parent is very different. Michael needs a very different approach than Danny does. Danny is probably, and they're both probably going to need a different approach than their sister because they're different individuals and we have to individualize our parenting to our kids if you want your kids to feel seen and heard. And to me, as someone who grew up chronically feeling not good enough, chronically feeling unlovable, chronically feeling like I wasn't enough, it's really important to me to make sure that I do my best to make sure that my kids don't have those same core beliefs and that they know they're loved and they know they're accepted and that they might have challenges, but that doesn't make them bad. And that might be bad behavior. And it's behavior that I don't necessarily approve of. But that doesn't make them a bad human. It doesn't make them innately bad. And if we take the same approach to every kid, first off, then you're going to definitely compare how each kid reacts and then winners and losers based on that, which isn't healthy. And it's going to look to one of those kids where that approach doesn't work. It's going to look like they were less important to you because you didn't change how you're responding based on what they need. And again, as hard as it is, guys, I want to remind us that our kids are children. And if you were talking about any other child, right, that's not yours and you witness some of the things that we say or do, we wouldn't approve of that, but we feel justified when it's our kids sometimes. And I've been there. I lost it, but he deserved it. No, he's 6. He's 6, Jamie. He doesn't deserve you yelling like a crazy person. Whether you feel that way in that moment or not, and I have, he doesn't deserve it. He's 6 years old. And it's really important for us to even, when we do mess up, to recognize that and go back to that kid and say, first, I calm down. First, I do some deep breathing, I do meditation, I calm myself down, I regulate my nervous system, and then I go, I am so sorry. Mommy was really frustrated and that was not appropriate and I shouldn't have yelled at you like that. Point blank period. No but. No, if you did this, mommy shouldn't have responded that way. Okay, mommy's going to work on that. All right. Let's now talk about why you were upset. Right. And then I'll get into what he did when he was acting like a crazy person and how he can respond differently. And I model that for him. I'll say, next time, Mike, I'm going to tell you I need some space so that I can step away and calm myself down because sometimes mommy gets upset and it's hard for me to calm down. Right. And that sounds crazy to some people, but that's modeling. It's modeling for your kid what a true apology looks like. It's modeling for your kid, like, hey, sometimes we experience big emotions, and here are the things that we can do to deal with them. And it's not just your responsibility to deal with your big emotions, it's mine. I have a responsibility as a fellow human being and your parent to modulate my own responses. And my children are not responsible for how they make me feel. I am responsible for how I deal with my feelings. And that, guys, is pretty much, I feel like, one of the biggest changes you can make in parents. As a parent, your children are not responsible for how you handle your emotions. They might make you feel a certain way. You might respond negatively. It might be entirely justifiable in your brain. I mean, I have a 6-year-old who will follow me around the house and like yell if I'm trying to separate. He will when he's really escalated, like just keep going. And it can be hard to stay really regulated, even as a therapist, even knowing all these skills. I have my own trauma history. I have my own triggers, and it's going to trigger me. But that's why we work on all these other little steps so that my kid doesn't get to that point. Because there is a time period before when Michael is following me around the house and yelling like a lunatic and won't leave me alone. And when he is starting to get upset before he gets to that point of no return, where you see those kids with like the blackout eyes. Like, that's my kid. That was me. So I don't blame him. Really excited about it, guys. So I want to encourage you guys. We just posted a new website. It's getraumatherapist.com. I'm going to be sending out newsletters. So please sign up for our newsletters. I'm going to be sending out worksheets that will correspond with what we're talking about in the coming weeks in November. And our goal is to have a worksheet to help you work through some of the topics that we're talking about on here so that you guys can have a little taste of what it would be like to be in the Don't Know How She Does It course and really give you guys the free resources that will help you in working through some of this stuff. Because it is hard. It is really, really hard to be a parent. I think that's one of the hardest jobs in the world. It is really hard to be a parent when you have your own emotional triggers and your kid triggers all of your shit. And for those of us who grew up in toxic households or have CPTSD, I think that it's even more important for us as adults to do that work. Because I know for me and most of the people that I've worked with that have these issues, having kids brings up all of your stuff about I'm not going to be a good parent, or I'm going to mess up, or I'm going to do like all of these fears of becoming your parents are like in us. And if we don't look at that and work on that and like separate from that, it does wind up happening anyway, unconsciously, because we repeat all their behaviors because we're triggered. And that's really what it is. I don't think anyone wants to be a bad parent. I think we all just are human beings and we get triggered, and our kids get triggered. And if we can help you guys to learn how to manage your triggers, how to feel more regulated in your body so that you can approach your kid and be regulated, because when you're regulated, they're more likely to be regulated. That is truly life-changing and creates a much calmer household. And it's a lifestyle change, guys. This is not quick fixes that you do one thing and you make the chore chart or do this and your life's going to be easier. Like, first off, none of those things work unless you're consistent, because kids need consistency. And doing the work on you and learning why you're responding this way. What is triggering you to respond? Because honestly, you have no control over your kids. Hard reality. We have no control over what our children do, but you do have control over how you respond to it and how you respond to your children, and how you manage your own emotions has a major impact on their attachment to you, how they see themselves in the world, how they conduct themselves in the world, and how they're able to regulate their own emotions. Because if we think back, guys, to why we struggle to regulate emotions or our default responses when we're feeling triggered, they're a lot like our parents for most of us, because that's how we learned how to deal with stress. So if we don't work through that, our unconscious response is always going to be the response that makes us be like, ugh, I feel like the worst mom in the world. And then we ruminate on it and we beat ourselves up, and been there. That also is really unhealthy. And we have tools to help you guys work through that too. As well as an amazing sisterhood of people that are all going through it, that are supportive and non-judgmental, because mama can be really hard and people get judgmental. So again, please go to our website, getraumatherapist.com, sign up for our newsletter so you can get all of our lovely worksheets and podcasts, like limited podcast episodes and all the extra goodies that we want to give you guys for free to help you along this journey. I want to thank you guys for listening today. And I want to remind you that you are good enough, mama. Till next time.
Thank you for listening to Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist. We appreciate you listening. While our host may provide some personal and professional advice, we want to remind you that this show is for entertainment purposes only. Each individual situation is unique, and good enough is not a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need a therapist and are located in New York or Missouri, feel free to reach out to us at liendr.com or resilient-mo.com.